Hi there, I'm David.
And I'm Con, and welcome to another episode of Camera Peeps. David, this is a momentous episode of Camera Peeps. Why is it so?
It's a big day for us because it's our first live, our first remote.
And who's our first special guest?
Well, we're crossing to Sydney. Pieter de Vries.
Peter,
welcome.
Welcome.
Hey, hi.
So,
hey, Con, Dave, how are you?
Good.
Good.
The system works.
Yeah, it's amazing the technology that we have at our fingertips to make this happen.
Yeah, you're both looking extremely handsome there. You've done a much better lighting job than I have.
Fantastic. It's all in the makeup, I think.
Actually,
yeah.
I'm not wearing any. But
So, Peter, can you tell us what you're going to talk about? This episode's all with you today. You have the topic. What is the topic we're going to discuss today?
Okay, I spent a lot of time working with people who shoot with DSLRs and mirrorless cameras. Whilst I don't shoot a lot of material as a cinematographer myself on DSLRs or mirrorless cameras, a lot of video material, I have a very strong interest in using them with other people to show them how to use them. And as such, I'm always updating my cameras and learning how to use them. As such, I've just purchased the Sony A7RIII Mark III, which has been out for a little while, but I slowly coming around to looking at the specifications and realizing that for video, it's probably getting as nice as you could possibly get for a stills camera to be shooting video. So there's a lot of things about this camera from a video point of view that I really like. So I just wanted to just share a few thoughts on the Sony A7RIII Mark III, the latest version of that camera. Very successful camera for Sony, by the way, as you know.
yeah, well, I'm all ears because when the 5D thing was up and running, when the A7S Mark I came out, that actually appealed to me. That's when I jumped onto the bandwagon there, and it appealed to me as a TV guy because it had things like peaking, it had zebra and things I was familiar with. It wasn't a great form factor, but it was fantastic. As the lock-off B camera in interviews and things, it was absolutely fantastic, and the HDMI output, getting a clean feed out to an external recorder, it really appealed to me, and we're actually using them in this cross we're doing today. So I'm keen to hear what this Mark III has.
Now you've got the A7RS.
S, yes, A7S, yeah.
And Peter's going to talk about the A7R. Is that the model?
A7R Mark III.
Mark III, yep. So what are some of the features in the Mark III that are worthwhile talking about?
Well, I think the first thing, before I sort of get into specifics, it's still very much the same looking camera that it always was. And I'd have to preface any comments I say about any stills camera that shoots video is that they are a stills camera that shoot video. They are not that comfortable to use. They were never designed. They were never built.
I totally agree, Peter.
With that in mind, so the lenses are a compromise, everything's a little bit of a workaround. But in terms of their progression, and of course bang for buck, you know, for $4,500, $5,000, you can outfit yourself with a full frame sensor, beautiful lenses that are so moderately priced comparative to how, you know, the broadcast lenses that we used to use. But the thing is, they're a stills camera, and they shoot probably video that's just too good for their own good, if you know what I mean. I kind of wish they weren't so good, because we could totally ignore them and use them as a beautiful stills camera that they are. Yeah. So I have, I'm a cinematographer and a photographer. I work in both fields. So this
I love your photos that you post on Facebook. I always like them and share them.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, a lot of those are shot on, well, they're all shot on Sony cameras, but some of them are shot on A7s, A7 II, A7R Mark II. I've got an RX 100 Mark V. I've got a whole raft of Sony cameras, but often it's the camera that I have on my belt, which is the RX 100 Mark V, that I actually use when I'm actually doing my travel photography, or certainly the stuff locally around the beaches of Sydney, very pre-sunrise shots that I seem to have found myself specialising in. But just getting back to the A7R Mark III, I think the progression has been very slow and incremental, and I would have been quite happy staying with the version 2 Mark II. It's a really, really sweet camera. However, there's a couple of things about the Mark III that are very, very enticing for anyone shooting video, and the most important thing, probably one of the things at the top of the list, is the fact that they have a much bigger battery. This new Z series of batteries, where I had 8, I've done a lot of work in Antarctica with my A7s, and I would take 8 to 10 batteries out with me on a shoot onto the ice. I've been shooting for 2 days on the one battery here in Sydney.
Big difference.
And that's been shooting 4K video as well.
Wow.
So it's an extraordinary leap forward with the battery. The good thing that came with the battery is that they had to make the hand grip bigger. So now you can actually get your hands right into it, and I always had a feeling it was going to slip out of my hands, and now I can grip it. It's much nicer to grip. Everything else about it is pretty well much the same as before. The specifications, of course, have been ramped up. The sensor has been also ramped up. But in terms of its video features, there's not a lot of additional things, but except for higher resolution screens, which are very important for cinematography. Of course, being able to look through the viewfinder, through the EVF, to shoot video. We kind of cinematographers, we've always taken that for granted. You want to shoot a video, you stick your eye up in all kinds of weather, whether it's bright outside, whatever, you put it up to your eye. You have zebras, you have histograms, you have waveforms, you have peaking, all kinds of things that you take for granted. And of course, with the mirrorless cameras in particular, the Sony versions of them, all those tools are built into it. So you can just pick this camera up out of the box and just put it up to your eye and just shoot video. It's in focus and it's beautifully focused. So there's so much going for it. All those things are still in this camera and in spades, but they're easier to access. The menus have been streamlined. The camera itself seems to be more weatherproofed or weather sealed, if you like. I don't think it's waterproof, but it certainly is water resistant. The lenses, it just feels like an incremental improvement on the build quality of the camera. Things like the assignable buttons, C1, C2, C3, C4, they're in better places. I think they've added one more. There's buttons all over the joint, so you can kind of access menus and such with such ease. But the real bonus with this is the incremental change. That is, it's not incremental, it's actually a monumental change in the efficiency of follow focus or autofocus.
Really? I've heard the follow focus or the autofocus on this is quite exceptional.
It is, and it's what a lot of people are talking about with video, to be able to track faces. I've tested it and it's fantastic. You can walk towards camera. A shot that's normally actually out of bounds for a lot of video shooters on DSLRs, you simply don't attempt filming anyone walking towards the camera, let alone running towards the camera, because it's a shot that's it's just a bridge too far to keep it in focus.
Yep.
You can start at the back of the shot and come right up, and it will just track focus with you all the way. So for presenter material, it's absolutely fantastic. You can see that background as you're walking forward. You see the background getting softer and softer and softer.
Wow.
And
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
Comes around. So it's really sweet camera from that point of view. So except that's not enough.
No, I was going to ask because I haven't done the research on this camera, so my questions are genuine because I'm still running the Mark I. But I don't like to admit it, but certainly when the cameras are on the gimbal and in single operator mode, it's the only way you can do it. And the A7S Mark I is pretty good. So to hear that this Mark III is even better is amazing, because the reality for us...
now, keep in mind, he's got the R, the A7R.
Sorry, but the fact that it has such good autofocus capability changes everything with not having to buy all the servo motors.
Which adds weight too, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I guess it must be amazing on one of those single-handed handled gimbals as well. That'll be quite appealing to a lot of people, I think.
I think, Dave, for gimbal use, this Mark III version of the camera is even better and more accurate and probably more forgiving on a gimbal than even the Mark II. I know you have the earlier model of the A7S, and also just keep in mind that the A7S, when it first came out, was always put up there as the video version. In other words, the one that was optimized for video, 12 megapixel sensor with outrageous ISO. And it was always seen as which camera do you get? You're shooting video, you get the A7S. You're shooting stills,
that's right,
you
that's
get the
how
A7S.
I remember it.
My feelings are that it's kind of changed. I think now that the R series and the A7 III itself and the A7R III equally as good as in terms of their optimization for video. I think you'll find that you don't now refer to the A7S as the cinematography version or video only version. You now look at the A7R Mark III as in its own right a really fantastic video camera, plus the advantage of the stills side of it is extraordinary. I'm just enjoying shooting. I shoot a lot of stills, and I find it a beautiful camera to shoot stills on, and just be able to flick it into video mode and shoot. It's a great little camera for me. It's still the wrong shape.
Yeah. So if you put it into one of those little cages or whatever and put an external Zacuto viewfinder, have you gone that far with it, or are you still just utilising the inbuilt?
How good's the viewfinder, the built-in viewfinder, I guess Dave's asking?
Yeah, no. Well, just to get back to, say, Dave's question, that's a good question. And the answer to that is the advantage of this camera, and the one you've got as well, but is that you just simply don't need to do that anymore. I suppose, there's a lot of people who do for production work. They perhaps need to build it up a little bit more to get follow focus. But once you add a set of rails to these, it just becomes, you open Pandora's box.
I agree.
And next minute you've got Frankenstein sitting on your shoulder. I try and keep away from it. I know people who love to build it up and just have that more balanced feel, and certainly a very impressive looking piece of kit, especially when you turn up on a job.
It depends who you ask, if it looks impressive or not.
Impressive.
But because one of the things that we often talk about, I like to talk about, is the business end of buying all this equipment. And I sort of figure, well, if you spend $4,500 on a new camera and then you buy all the accessories and the motors, blah blah blah, that are you better off just trying to get a second-hand F5, that's already got all that stuff on it, So that's my argument now, because that does add up. All those accessories, they do add up.
Oh, did we answer the question on how good the viewfinder is? Yeah.
No, I didn't answer that.
Yeah.
Again, that's been improved a lot. There's several standards of viewfinder options that you have in the menus for different. Obviously, the higher the quality image that you're looking at, the more battery life that you chew up. However, it's an issue. So you can run it in its high resolution mode, and it's very, very good. It's very accurate. It's a joy to use.
So with the amount of travel that you do, they must be almost go under the radar to a certain point with the security people at the airports, because you walk through with the XD cam or the F5 and they're just,
where's your carnet?
If it's not the security, it's the flight attendants, it's
where's
everyone.
your batteries?
That's right. Yeah. So it must be great to travel with.
No, you're right. It is. It's a pretty easy job to arrive somewhere and have it just in your suitcase or in a bag above. It doesn't attract any attention really, as an F5 might, as you suggested.
Yes. And just another question: does it just record to SD cards, those high-speed SD cards like the earlier cameras, and is there only one slot?
No. Well, again, this is one of the features that I haven't mentioned so far, and that is that it now has two slots.
Perfect.
One of the slots, slot number 1, records to the new UHS-2 2, version 2, which is it's the fastest SD card, the fastest memory card available anywhere at the moment. So it will, and this is kind of actually optimized for stills use, to be able to shoot up to 15 frames, raw frames per second. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon, I think it's 10, sorry. JPEG's much higher. But in RAW, you can shoot 10 frames a second. And this is able to, these new UHS 2 cards can actually record without, they still buffer, but they allow you to continue to actually take photographs. So the 2 slots, it's very, very handy, because you can record video on one card. You can record, or you can assign video to one card, slot 1, or you can assign stills photography or stills images to slot number 2. And also you can have RAW on one and JPEGs on the other. There's about 8 different combinations that you can have, but you can certainly send all your video to one card. You can also back up your video simultaneously to both cards.
That feature. Yeah.
And also is one of the combinations, because and this could be way out there, we'll cut it out if I'm off the mark, but can you can you have like an intervalometer? Could you be doing video and then taking a random still shot every 30 seconds or something? Is that possible? Do you know? I'm
not sure. No, actually, to be honest, I'm not sure.
Oh no, only because still shots, any video that you do, the still shots for social media are huge. They're an important part of the job. If I had my way, I would have a makeup artist on every job. I'd also have a stills photographer on every job, because the stills photos after the job, people just can't get enough of them. And I thought, that would be really cool in an interview if you could actually get a high quality still image. But maybe not. We'll check.
I mean, certainly extracting the still images from the 4K video files is fantastic. That's been the case for many years. We've been able to simply just doing screen grabs, of shots in 4K look absolutely fantastic.